Welcome back to Debate the News True Crime. Before we begin, a warning to our listeners. This episode includes discussions that may be disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs support, help may be available via the Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. We approach this story with respect for the victim, Police Officer John O'Keefe.
We're not attorneys, law enforcement officials, medical professionals, or forensic experts. We're literally podcast hosts. This show is recorded live on Chatter Social with minimal editing. Any factual errors are completely unintentional. Any individuals, businesses, or organizations that are mentioned that have not been convicted of a crime are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And the opinions of our guests live here on Chatter Social and our audience members are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Debate the News. This is Debate the News True Crime. Let's dive into the case timeline.
January 28th, 2022, Karen Reed and her boyfriend, Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe, met friends in Canton, Massachusetts. The group included Jennifer McCabe and her husband Matthew McCabe, along with other friends and acquaintances who would later become key witnesses. The group spent the late evening moving between two Canton bars, C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall Bar and Grill. Shortly after midnight, a smaller group decided to continue to an after-party at 34 Fairview Road, a home owned by Brian Albert, a retired Boston police officer, and his wife, Nicole Albert.
Karen drives O'Keefe toward Fairview Road in her Lexus SUV. Digital evidence later presented in the court placed O'Keefe's phone arriving in the area of the Fairview Road at about 12:24 in the morning. What happens next becomes the central dispute of the case. What is not disputed is that O'Keefe never returned home that night.
After leaving the Fairview Road area, Reed's phone activity becomes a major part of the prosecution's timeline. At about 12:33 a.m. to 6:03 a.m., a state police digital forensics witness testified that Reed made more than 50 calls to O'Keefe in that window and left him 8 voicemail messages. At 12:36, Reed's phone auto-connected to Wi-Fi at the O'Keefe's home in Canton. 12:37, the first voicemail is time-stamped. Then, shortly after 6 a.m., the final voicemail captured audio as Reed discovered O'Keefe in the snow and called 911.
Those calls and voicemails became one of the prosecution's central ways of placing Reed back at O'Keefe's home shortly after midnight and framing her state of mind throughout the night. Between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m., O'Keefe's niece realized he had not come home. Calls were made to people in the group from the night before, including Jennifer McCabe. Jennifer and another woman, Carrie Roberts, got in a vehicle and began driving around Canton looking for John O'Keefe.
They ultimately drove to 34 Fairview Road, and at about 6 a.m., they found O'Keefe unresponsive in the snow in the front lawn area. First responders attempted life-saving measures, and O'Keefe was taken to the hospital and was unfortunately pronounced dead later that morning.
The official autopsy later listed O'Keefe's cause of death as blunt impact injuries to the head and hyperthermia. The medical examiner testified the manner of death could not be determined from just the autopsy. And within days, investigators focused on Reed. Police seized her Lexus SUV and documented damage to the right rear taillight. Investigators testified that pieces of plastic consistent with Reed's taillight were found in the snow outside 34 Fairview Road. And prosecutors later argued that fragments from the taillight and the other debris were consistent with O'Keefe being struck by the rear of Karen Reed's SUV.
Reed was arrested on February 1st, 2022, on charges that included manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene. Months later, a grand jury indicted her on more serious charges, including second-degree murder. Reed's first trial began in Norfolk Superior Court in spring of 2024. It lasted for weeks and drew heavy public attention. In court, jurors heard 2 sharply different accounts of how O'Keefe died. Prosecutors argued that Reed's SUV struck O'Keefe, causing the head injury and leaving him in the snow where hypothermia set in. They pointed to taillight fragments found near the scene, debris, including broken glass, witness testimony about Reed's statements and behavior, and digital timelines and vehicle-related data.
Now, the defense, they disputed that any vehicle strike occurred and challenged the prosecution on multiple fronts. First, the injury pattern. Defense experts argued the injuries were not consistent with a rear vehicle strike. And the scene and evidence handling, the defense highlighted irregular evidence collection methods used in heavy snow. They argued the scene was not preserved like a homicide scene early on. Then we got the investigator bias. The defense focused on investigator conduct and the relationships between investigators and witnesses that are connected to the Albert home. Defense maintained O'Keefe was assaulted and sustained injuries consistent with a fight and or a dog attack, then ended up outside.
The first trial repeatedly returned to contradictions and disputed details. Reed's statements at the scene. Some first responders said Reed repeatedly said she hit him. Other testimony described her questioning whether she could have hit him in a panic. Then there's the timing of McCabe's internet search.
The how long to die in the cold search? Jennifer McCabe's phone was used to search how long to die in the cold, which was misspelled. They disputed when the search occurred. Prosecutors said it happened after O'Keefe was found during the emergency response. The defense said it occurred about 2:27 in the morning, hours earlier, and argued it indicated foreknowledge.
Another recurring issue was a set of calls between key witnesses in the early hours of January 29, including claims that some of the calls were accidental butt dials. The defense argued the pattern of calls, combined with later phone changes and missing data, suggested coordination between witnesses in a greater conspiracy to frame Karen Reed. The witnesses disputed that and said the calls were accidental or innocuous. Despite weeks of testimony and intense battling between the defense and prosecution, on July 1st, 2024, the judge declared a mistrial after the jury reported it was deadlocked.
And after the mistrial, Karen Reed's lawyers tried to block a retrial on double jeopardy grounds, arguing that jurors later indicated agreement on acquittals for some counts. The courts rejected those efforts and the case was scheduled again for trial. And during this period, the conduct of investigators became a major public and legal issue.
The lead state police investigator had sent messages that included vulgar, derogatory commentary about Reed. Trial testimony and later reporting described messages that mocked her health condition, appearance, and voice, including crude language and jokes about searching her phone for nude photos.
While the state case proceeded, federal authorities were investigating aspects related to the case. In March of 2025, the special prosecutor later brought into the case said in court that the federal investigation had concluded.
Jury selection for the retrial of Karen Reed began on April 1st, 2025.
Let's discuss some of the theories of how John died and how they were challenged at the retrial. Okay, so gather around, guys. Theory number one, the vehicle strike outside 34 Fairview Road. The prosecution, they argued Karen Reed backed into O'Keefe and left him there. They leaned on physical evidence, those taillight fragments and other debris. They leaned on Reed's phone activity and voicemail and the testimony about her statements at the scene. Now, the defense, they argued the injury biomechanics did not match a rear strike and that investigative and evidence handling problems absolutely created reasonable doubt.
And then there's theory number two. The defense argued O'Keefe was injured during an altercation and later ended up outside. They used witness call patterns, digital timestamps, and alleged coordination to argue that there was a cover-up.
Let's go to theory number three, the dog attack. The defense, they argued the right arm wounds were consistent with a dog attack involving the Albert's dog, Chloe. And the prosecution response, well, they disputed that interpretation and they maintained the wounds were consistent with the prosecution's collision sequence and scene conditions.
On June 18th, 2025, the jury found Karen Reed not guilty of second-degree murder, not guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of leaving the scene, but guilty of only a lesser operating under the influence charge. She was sentenced to 1 year of probation on the OUI conviction.
After the criminal case ended, the legal conflict continued on two major tracks: civil litigation and related criminal cases involving third parties.
In August 2024, O'Keefe's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Reed and also against the two Canton bars where she drank that night. The family's civil complaint alleges that Reed's intoxication and actions caused O'Keefe's death and sought damages for wrongful death and emotional distress. In 2025, Reed's civil lawyers moved to dismiss portions of the lawsuit. A judge dismissed at least one claim while allowing others to proceed.
And in November of 2025, Karen Reed filed her own lawsuit alleging that others were responsible for O'Keefe's death and that she was framed in a coordinated cover up. Defendants included several key witnesses from 34 Fairview Road and multiple Massachusetts State Police investigators. And in January of 2026, several of the civilian witnesses and police defendants asked a federal judge to dismiss Reed's lawsuit. Their filings argued that the claims were time barred, and the police defendants also asserted qualified immunity defenses. And as of February 19th, 2026, the dismissal efforts were pending. After being acquitted of the homicide related charges, Karen Reed continued to speak publicly. She participated in the docuseries A Body in the Snow, the trial of Karen Reed, that was released on Investigation Discovery, HBO Max. In later interviews, Karen described not planning to watch it and objected to what she characterized as editorial framing for marketability.
In January 2026, Reed appeared in a two-part episode of the Rotten Mango podcast discussing her account of the case and the aftermath. In it, she describes being grateful for the verdict, but explains how the legal costs associated with both trials has wiped her out financially. She no longer owns a home, and she had to sell it to help pay for her second trial. She is currently living with her parents in Massachusetts. While Reed maintains that she is not anti-law enforcement, she discusses how her experience and how she was treated has made her feel a desire to leave the state of Massachusetts and live elsewhere.
And as of February 19th, 2026, Karen Reed has publicly discussed plans to tell her story in longer form media. Public reporting and her own interview remarks have referenced books and adaptation discussions.
And as for where the case stands, the criminal prosecution against Reed is over. She was acquitted of the homicide counts and remains convicted only of OUI, with probation running through June 2026. Reed's civil rights lawsuit alleging a framing cover-up remains pending in federal court, with dismissal motions filed. And a separate set of prosecutions involving third parties, notably Turtle Boy, remain a continuing legal aftershock of the public conflict arising around this case.
Ooh, we are live on Chatter Social. Go to your app store for Android or iPhone and download the app, and you could be in the room and join us as we discuss this case and plenty of other cases. We record live on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We want to hear from you guys in the audience, and there's no right or wrong, obviously, because it's what you believe. So the key question right now, what we're going to start with, do you believe John O'Keefe was hit by Karen Reed's SUV? Or do you believe something else happened entirely different?
So I do not believe that John O'Keefe was hit by Karen's SUV. I think that she dropped him off, and I think something happened. I don't think that the evidence supports the claim that she killed him.
I am going to agree. I think that Something happened in that house. There were DEA agents and all kind of powerful people in that house that night drinking with John O'Keefe, and I believe something went down and they placed him outside. Any police officer I know or ex-police officer, a dead body can't be anywhere within, 6 feet of their house or anywhere around their property and they have no idea. In my opinion, this thing went down in his house and they had to figure out how to clean this up. And to me, they try to pin it on Karen Reed. There was just so much evidence pointing to the fact that it was them. The ex-police officer got rid of his phone and he took it to a military base to like demolish it instead of just swapping it out. You're getting rid of the dog. You're getting rid of the phone. The lady is Googling at 2 o'clock in the morning. How long does it take for a body to die in the snow? It was just too much, in my opinion, to believe that Karen Reed did it.
So I have to say, in my opinion, personally, that I feel Karen Reed is innocent. Once Karen Reed became the focus, I feel other possibilities were not thoroughly pursued. Like some individuals in the home were not treated as suspects. The taillight pieces were found after the vehicle had already been in police custody. So there was argument that perhaps they could have been planted. Chain of custody and timing of evidence collection has been questioned. The police officers, I believe that they may have been brothers or had some sort of familial relationship. But this is what gets me. The reported injuries included head trauma, but limited lower body trauma typical of vehicle strikes. When you get hit by a car, it depends on the rate of speed, but between 0 and 24 miles an hour, you're probably going to hit middle to lower extremities. But they said he had blunt force trauma to his head.
I have to say, I do not think that she killed him, but I always felt she could have clipped him by accident with no, malicious harm or intent to kill him, but just she was backing up and she didn't see him because of the snow. I would get distracted by the snow.
She probably did not kill him. I just wish that she would be a little more sensitive towards the situation of his death. I feel like she's using the media for fame. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I'm glad that she is not in this situation anymore, that she was acquitted and that's done and over, and she can now be at peace. But I just want her to be more sensitive towards his death. It really bothers me, her attitude.
I think Mariana brings up a good point. However, I'm just curious what she thinks that she should do instead. She's trying to gain her reputation back. She's lost her house. Her credit is probably in the gutter. Who knows who will hire her? I don't know what kind of livelihood she made prior to this, but I think just because the trial is over doesn't mean that she's okay. She probably is dealing with the loss of this person, but larger than that, she's dealing with the loss of her livelihood, her reputation that she's a good and decent person. And that is really hard to, I think, overcome.
So first, I'm going to say that I do not think that Karen Reed hit him. I think that it's being covered up, whatever really did happen. And I'm going to disagree with Mariana because in the beginning she was devastated until she was accused of being the one doing it. So not only is she angry because she's being accused, but she's also scared. She's afraid. She's fighting for her life. She lost her job. She lost her home. She lost her reputation. Now she has to rebuild her entire life because she was blamed for something that she didn't do. And I don't see her as being insensitive. And she even said, when she was going to court, she basically had to sit stone faced because if she looked one way, if she did this, if she did that, she was being criticized for every little move that she made. When you're in that situation, you don't know how you're going to react. And she was fighting for her life. She was scared. And she was angry because I would be angry too if I was being blamed for something that I didn't do. When you're faced in that situation or any situation where you're angry, you can become this person that people don't typically recognize.
I have to agree. Watching this trial, I feel like if I was in that position, I would probably be the same way, like a woman scorned, like so many people were against her. The entire police department was trying to take her down. I don't know how I would feel if I was truly innocent. And I thought that too with the way that she reacted, her questioning, did I hit him? I don't think if somebody really hit somebody, that would be something they would even want to put a focus on. So that kind of like made me think, I really don't think she did it. And then you have to think too, during the trial, there was so many things that were read, the text messages from the police officers. So embarrassing. I mean, I'm not going to repeat some of the things, but go and look and watch some of the things that were said about that woman. So embarrassing. So having to put herself in such a vulnerable position, I can see why she had, I don't want to say attitude, but the attitude that she had, the outlook. She was looking for her justice, and I don't blame her at all for wanting to take it further to kind of clear her name because at the end of the day, in my opinion, she's innocent.
I'll say that Mariana is not alone in this opinion. There's a lot of people out there who just don't like Karen Reed. They feel like she's enjoying the fame. I disagree, though. After watching the documentary, after listening to her interview on the Rotten Mangoes podcast, I actually really like her. And I think that this is a woman who just has been through hell and was forced to be stoic because she was fighting for her life. And I think that's just what it is. I think that when you're having everything taken from you, you're losing all this money, you lost your boyfriend, you lost your career, little things like a magazine wanting to do a piece on you or the people coming up and wanting to take selfies. I think the little things like that might just be what gets you through it.
If this is my life on the line and you have the public come out to like give you hugs and tell you that they're there for you, that's gonna make me smile too. And everybody's scrutinizing her. Oh, she's smiling too hard. She's this, she's that. Well, maybe that is helping her get through it because if I was in that position, I would want to feel love too. I would want to feel love from my, defense team, which she did. And then she had a lot of support from the community, and that probably helped her mental health and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, like she even said it in the documentary. She's like, I don't even know what to look up, down. What do I do? Because everybody's scrutinizing everything I do. And then I think that Karen probably said that I hit him because of the way these cops allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, because as far as I know, they're not charged, they're in jail. They wanted Karen to second guess herself after he, in my opinion, died in that ex police officer's house and they put him out in the snow later. They put him in a way to frame it like he got hit. So being as she was drunk and she saw the way that they put his body, the first thing is like, wait a second, did I hit him? No, I didn't hit him. I would have remembered that, blah, blah, blah.
And when you back up and you hit something, you have to be going really fast. And you know that you've struck something. I mean, I have backed up in the snow and hit a snowbank and had to like stop and get out and look at my bumper to make sure there isn't like a whole bunch of damage.
For the plow truck to say that he was able to see that house and to drive by and there was nobody on that lawn. Yeah, Karen Reed didn't hit that man. The friend group came together and they said, we got to figure out what to do with this body. We're going to pin this on Karen Reed. That's my opinion.
Well, that's a wrap on this Debate the News True Crime episode. We'll be back Thursday with more Karen Reed discussions to dive into. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, don't drink and drive or OUI. Good night, everyone.